And we are live. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And let us know where you're hanging out tonight. We've got a chat room on the right. Just go ahead and type in where you're hanging out. This is Steve Prusak. I'm hanging out in Los Angeles. How about you, Mark Reinfeld?
Hey, everybody. I'm here in Miami Beach.
Go ahead and type it in, and it's a rainy night here in L.A. How about you, Mark?
It's been pretty dry and sunny.
And
really excited to have our special guest here today. It's going to be an amazing evening.
Oh, we've got so much lined up here. I see Melissa's in Arizona. Eric's hanging out in Texas. Oh, I see this now. Lisa's hanging out in Chicago. What do you see over there, Mark?
Alicia from Melbourne, Australia. Nils from Germany. Kari from BC, Canada.
I see Rob in the Jersey Shore. That's my hometown. Hey, Rob.
Nice. Martina from Cambridge. Jennifer from Fort Collins.
Nils in Germany.
Chris from Sausalito. Jenny from Ontario.
Welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us.
I love how it taps into the worldwide community here.
Yeah, right? I think we're ready to get started. What do you think?
Great.
We'll put my drum down. Well, thank you and welcome. This is a Vegan Survivor event. If you're part of the Vegan Survivor tribe, this is just one of our continuing education workshops, and what a great night ahead. Mark, go ahead. What do we have lined up here?
Well, tonight our special guest, Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, will be sharing with us. The topic is I Don't Eat Fake Meat, an etymological appeal to mainstreaming veganism and compassion. And just really excited about the topic.
I'm your host. I'll be hosting along with Mark. My name's Steve Prusak.
I'm Mark Reinfeld.
And without any delay, for now, let's go through some of the webinar housekeeping here, Mark. Okay, some tips for a successful event here. And first of all, please turn off your TV, competing browsers, cell phone, and all that other stuff, and close the door for the next hour or so. You're going to want to really tune in to what we have coming up here with Colleen.
And we're closing the chat room until after the presentation. We'll be having a Q&A with Colleen, and you'll be able to type in your questions then.
Just closed it now. And yes, so keep that in mind. We will be opening that up again later, but grab a notebook and pen. Some incredible information is coming your way. You're not going to want to miss any of it. And stay tuned. We do have some prizes coming out this evening, so at the very end we've got some prizes, and that's going to be exciting. But let's go. This is what we're going to cover with Colleen in the next hour here or so.
As I mentioned, the topic, an etymological appeal to mainstreaming veganism and compassion.
Showing you how to create a new compassionate paradigm.
Reprogramming for the language of compassion.
Mark and I are going to join you to show you how you can become a vegan survivor. We've got a special offer for you.
And then our favorite part is the Q&A with Colleen. So stay tuned till the end.
Yeah, get your typing fingers ready. Well, actually, we might be able to bring you on camera too. So if you're in a position where you'd like to join us on camera, if you've got your webcam, that will be an option for that. So you can let us know when the time comes. So you can brush your hair. Right, get ready for that. And we should mention too that we've got some prize giveaways. So stay tuned for that too. But we've talked about this before, Mark. There's typically 3 doorways towards veganism, towards a plant-strong lifestyle. Do you want to talk a little more about that?
Sure. I really love this analogy because in my years of being in the vegan movement, when you ask people what led them to embrace a plant-based lifestyle, their answer usually falls into one of 3 categories. It's usually health or medical, environmental or political, or ethical or animal rights reasons. So that's generally where the people fall in. And I like to say once you go through the door, though, you enter the room and you meet the people who came through the other doors, and you learn about those other reasons, and you embrace them as your own.
What about you, Mark? What brought you into it?
Personally, for me, it was connecting with animals. I was on a kibbutz in Israel and just started interacting with animals, and then was in India and Nepal, and just decided that I felt so much love for them, decided not to eat them anymore.
And for me, it was health that got me into vegetarianism, but animal rights that got me into veganism. What about you sitting at home? Thank you, first of all, for letting us into your home environment, for taking the time to tune in to this fun, incredible broadcast. It's just amazing what we can do with technology, that we could bring someone like Colleen into your home to interact with you and present this incredible information. So which door did you enter? We're going to take a poll right now. I'm going to go ahead and start that. Which door did you enter? So was it health or medical? Was it environmental or ethical? Or was it because Beyonce did it? Is that what you had down there, Mark?
And which is really cool is we could see the real-time entries now. If you look on the poll tab on the right.
Yeah, I think everyone at home can see that too in real time. And when we end the poll, we'll see the final results. We'll just give that a couple more minutes and just figure out what we've got here.
It doesn't look like there are many Beyonce followers in the group. I don't see anyone entering that reason.
No, I don't think anyone liked that joke. Let's go ahead and should we end the poll?
Sure. Cool.
Okay,
wow. So this gives an indication of the group: about 35% for health and medical, 3% for environmental, and 63% for the ethical reasons.
Well, great. That gives us an idea. So, Mark, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to introduce our guest. She's Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, and I think let's go ahead and I think we're about ready. She's here. She's here in the green room with us, and she's ready to join us live.
Sure. Well, Colleen's a recognized expert and thought leader on the culinary, social, and ethical and practical aspects of living vegan. Colleen Patrick-Goudreau is an award-winning author of 7 books, an acclaimed speaker, and beloved host of the inspiring podcast Food for Thought, which was voted favorite podcast by Veg News magazine readers. Colleen has appeared on national and regional TV programs, including the Food Network, CBS, and Fox. Interviews with her have been featured on NPR, U.S. News and World Report, the Chicago Tribune, the Miami Times, Pacifica Radio, Rodale News, and in countless publication blogs and podcasts. And I met Colleen at the Vegetarian Summerfest, and I'm super excited to have her on the show here.
Yay!
Yay!
Colleen, welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's so lovely to be here.
So, we talked about this earlier, but you've got a lot of books, obviously, and here's just a few of them up on the screen. You've got The Joy of Vegan Baking, The Vegan Table, Color Me Vegan, Vegan's Daily Companion, the book on being vegan, the 30-Day Vegan Challenge, your podcast. So tonight we're talking about communication. How does language come into all this?
Yeah, so my background is in English literature and writing and linguistics and language, and I feel like I still need to go back, and I really want to go back for a degree, I think, in linguistics. I've always been fascinated in language and how it shapes the world and how it shapes us and how we use words. I've always been interested in etymology, of course, which is the study of the origins of words. So I've always loved it, and so to be able to incorporate my activism, my advocacy, my work with, in all of my passions is really, really gratifying for me. And I think it's really important because I think the words we use, the language we use really reflects what we believe in and shapes what we believe in. So I think it's incredibly important to talk about how we talk about what we believe in.
Well, we're excited to turn the cameras over to Colleen. She's got her slides up right now, and we're going to give her this opportunity to present this to all of us as part of the Vegan Survivor program from now and as we move forward with the program. We're so excited for this presentation to be part of everything we're doing. And here is Colleen's presentation, and we'll be back in a bit.
Thanks, guys. So, as I said, I really do believe that the words we use reflects who we are and reveals a lot about what we believe in. And there's a lot of talk around politically correct language, which of course is often said very derisively, and I'm not a fan of what's considered politically correct language, but I do believe that we need to use words that say what they mean, that reflect the truth, rather than conceal it. And certainly when it comes to what we eat, we have done a very good job of using words that mask, that conceal, not just what we're eating, but of course who we're eating, or that we're eating anyone at all, right? So interestingly, if we look at the history of English, one of the things that I find really fascinating is we can really point to a time when our language changes in terms of how we talk about who we're eating, how we refer to and how we name the animals. So as many of you know, I'm sure, I'm not going to give you a history lesson, but hopefully you know this much, especially if English is your first language. You know that English is built from many languages, Germanic languages, Anglo-Saxon, Latin, and of course after the Norman invasion, French. So most people know that much. They know that in 1066 the Normans invade at the time, England. And the Normans, it means the Northmen, so they came from the north of France. And so William the Conqueror takes the English throne, and with William the Conqueror as king, French becomes the dominant language of the court and of the administration, and remains such for 300 years. And so during this Norman occupation, about 10,000 French words were adopted into English, particularly words that have to do with culture. And you say these words every day. These are very common words, and of course we all know that words come from different places, and so we know the origins of certain words. But when you look at words like words that have to do with architecture, castle and tower, vault and buttress, these come from French. Words that have to do with government and law, such as jury and verdict, indict, parliament, lease, and tax, all of these are words that come from the French. We look at words that have to do with social class. So again, you're thinking about, these are the words of the court, right? These are the words of the administration. These are words of the people in power. So certainly social class has a lot to do with that. Queen, king, duke, baron, knight, and earl, these are all words from French. Sovereign, count, servant, and serf and worker, all of these are French words. Words having to do with warfare, of course, that says a lot about what was going on at the time. So words like arrow, bow, armor, battle, shield, and spear, war and army. Words having to do with religion, such as abbey, clergy, friar, parish, prayer, and priest are all French words from the French. And then words having to do with food, and there's so many as we know: a la mode, a la carte, cuisine, sauté, puree, flambe. So what I'm interested in is how this change affects the way we talk about animals, non-human animals. And what happens is we have a change from Old English when we have one word for both the living and the slaughtered animals. So we would use one word to talk about both the animals who were alive and the animals we were eating. And that changes to where we begin to have we begin to have two different words. So it gets separated out when French becomes the dominant language. Now, I'm not suggesting that prior to this in Anglo-Saxon England, people weren't eating animals, but what I'm pointing out is that the way we talk about animals affects and reflects the way we think about them and the way we interact with them. So, for example, you look at the word pig, look at the word swine, and boar. Now, all of these are Old English words. The word pig originally meant young pig. The word for adults was swine. And another word, an Old English word that eventually became pig, is a word that meant to furrow. And this reflects a widespread tendency to name animals based on their attributes or behaviors, right? So pigs furrow, they dig, and so we have a word pig, which reflects that. Swine, as I said, is just an Old English word for adult pig. And then you have boar, it's also an Old English word from West Germanic originally. And then what happens in the 13th century, once Old French or Anglo-French is an established language, we now see a different word, no longer reflecting the animal himself, but the animal as slaughtered and mutilated, and we have a word, pork. So pork is introduced from the French, referring, of course, to a pig's flesh, right? It's not referring to a living animal at all. Now, all it is just this thing that is this inanimate thing, this object, this piece of flesh that no longer has an animal reflected in it, no living animal. And then, of course, same thing with the word bacon. It's also a French word that literally means back meat. It literally means back meat. So people who, I mean, you can see it once you look at the word that way, then you can really see that it means back meat. So it doesn't any longer identify the animal's characteristics, but rather just identifies this, kind of mutilated dead animal's body part cut off for human consumption. Hog is also a word. It probably came in around the 12th century to refer to a pig who was slaughtered for consumption. So again, it's not about the animal itself. It's more about the fact that this was an animal who, or this was just the animal who gave us the meat, basically. The word comes from an Old Norse word, hogva, which means to strike or chop or cut, and so it literally refers to a castrated male. So there's just no evidence that this word was ever anything other than a term for animals used by humans, right? Because obviously non-domesticated animals wouldn't be castrated. So once they're the property of humans, they're castrated, and so this word, hogva, reflects that, and so we have the word hog. If you look at the word deer and stag, doe, and fawn, these are all Old English words. And if you look at the word deer, I love this. It comes from a Proto-Indo-European word which means breath. So quite literally, we're talking about the essence of a living thing, breath. And then stag, just an Old English word meaning a male animal. Doe means female deer, and it comes from a Proto-Indo-European word to suckle. So again, a beautiful characteristic of the living animal. Fawn comes to us through Latin, meaning fetus, obviously, meaning offspring. And then what happens, perhaps you can guess, we have a French word that comes in the 13th century, the word venison, which means meat of large game. And this comes to us from Latin. It's an old French word coming to us from Latin, coming from the word venatio. Now, a lot of people aren't familiar with that word, but they're familiar with this form of entertainment, which is what venatio was. It was a form of entertainment in Roman amphitheaters involving the hunting and slaying of wild animals. And so we've all seen these and read about these horrific games, quote unquote, where exotic beasts, wild animals from all around the Roman Empire were brought to Rome, and hunts were held in the morning prior to the gladiatorial duels that happened in the afternoon. And thousands of wild animals, thousands would be slaughtered in one day. There's a story that when Trajan was emperor, and Trajan was considered one of the good emperors, it shows how relative this was. When Trajan was emperor, over 9,000 animals were killed in one game, in one day. So the live animals become venison used only for killing. Then you look at cow, steer, bull, calf. These are all Old English words, and the word cow is an Old English word that came up through Germanic languages and seems to always have referred to a female bovine. The word steer has a similar history, referred to a young ox, but it also has an indication that it was from a Proto-Indo-European word meaning strength and sturdiness. So again, we have a characteristic of the animal that names the animal. Then we have bull, which is a Germanic word whose exact meaning is unknown, but it's speculated to mean to roar. So again, characterizing the strength of this male uncastrated bovine. And then we have the word calf, which comes from a Proto-Indo-European word meaning to swell. I love that too, because again, it's a young bovine, and so it's quite literally referring to this, to the womb, to the fetus, to this young animal. And then, of course, as you have probably guessed, can you guess where it goes? It goes to the French word boeuf, which means beef, which means the flesh of the cow or bull. And then, of course, we have the word veal, which means meat of a calf. Now, incidentally, I'll talk a little bit more about this later because I just find this so fascinating. The word cattle, so just kind of staying in this bovine category here, the word cattle comes from this 13th century word chattel, which is derived from the Latin word capitale. So we've got cattle, which is the English word, which comes from chattel, which originally came from the Latin word capitale. And capitale quite literally means property or slave or stock. So right away you can see the connection between owning non-human animals and owning human animals, human slaves, because the word chattel comes from all of this, which means slave. Okay, so we'll come back to a little bit more about that, but I find that fascinating. And then we have sheep, ewe, ram, and lamb. Now, sheep and ewe refer to the female animals. Ram refers to the male animal, and that looks like it comes from an Old Norse word meaning strong, so again reflecting the characteristics. And then when the French comes in, we now refer to mutton, which came from the French word in the 13th century, mouton, which just means flesh of sheep used as food. So again, we don't have the living animal anymore. Now we have a word just for the slaughtered, mutilated, piece of flesh, basically. You can see this also in chicken, hen, cock, and rooster. Rooster's not on here. Rooster looks like it's an Old English word from the word roost, which means to perch. So again, a characteristic of that animal. And these are all Old English words. The word chicken comes from German, Kuchen, which means chicken, just that's what it means. And then we have hen, which I love this. This is from a Proto-Indo-European word, which means bird who sings for sunrise. How beautiful is that? I love that. And it looks like it came, then it went to German and henna, and then it became hen. And then cock has a similar root history and refers to a male chicken, also from a Proto-Indo-European word meaning chant. So thinking about the song that a male, of course a rooster, will sing, then you get the characteristic, naming this animal chant going to cock. And then you get, in the 13th century, in Old French, a word from pouletrier, poultry, which just means domestic, well, which really is not a word we use for the living animal, right? So this is a word that's used in the industry and just referring to the flesh of the animal. Even though sometimes it's used as the living animal, and of course people will take that on, but certainly when we talk about the living animals, especially affectionately, we don't call them poultry. We talk about them as chickens or roosters or hens. And then pullet is a word that we still use for young animal, right? So all of this is just fascinating to me. So all of these Old English words, once referring to the living animals, then the French words come in and you have the separation between the living and the slaughtered. So what? What's the big deal? Wait, what's the result of all of this? What are the implications of this, if any? I personally think there are implications, and I don't think they're good ones for the animals. What happens, and you can see this quite literally reflected in our language, as I just showed you, is that we take the life out of the animal, literally and linguistically, and refer to them only as the used, exploited, dismembered, dead things. I would argue that this drastically alters our relationship with non-human animals. It distances us from them, and it shapes our perception of them as inanimate objects, not the living, breathing, feeling beings they are with all of these beautiful characteristics. We take away their intrinsic value. We other them, and by othering them, we can control and exploit them. Now, othering, which is the act of subordinating someone you deem different than you, is essential for controlling others and being desensitized to their suffering. Once you other someone, you can justify doing anything you want to them. In othering someone, you hold the power. And one of the most prevalent and powerful ways we other animals is through our use of language that denigrates them, and I would argue contributes to our violence against them. To illustrate this further, in human history, certain groups, often, of course, the ones who are holding the power, have called other groups, the ones they're trying to control or annihilate, animal names as a way of lowering their human status. In dehumanizing the other, you create this psychological distance from them that enables you to do to them what you want. And so, of course, we see this a lot in conflict and in war. And I would argue that all discrimination, all this violence against our fellow humans starts with othering. So of course we have written records documenting white Europeans calling really all non-whites, certainly black people especially in the United States, really all non-whites, apes, monkeys, baboons, brutes, savages, and beasts. And what I would really invite everyone to do, because I think it's a really interesting thing that happens when you're looking at this, because on one hand, as humanitarians, as people who care about human rights, we are offended by one group denigrating another group, right? But as people who care about animals, we're also offended by the fact that the greatest insult is to call someone an animal. So I think it's really interesting, and I would really invite people to just reflect upon and be aware of their reaction to this idea. It's so insulting that we would dehumanize someone, and yet it's so insulting that the way we do that is by calling them animals, because in and of themselves there's nothing inherently wrong with apes or monkeys or baboons, right? But we take these words and we use them as ways to denigrate other people. So I think it's just interesting what starts to happen as we start to look at this. We have, of course, evidence of white Europeans calling Native Americans hogs, asses, dogs, and wolves. Of course, Americans vilifying the Japanese, especially during World War II, calling them savage, so another use of this word savage, as well as variations of apes and monkeys and baboons, plus they're also called rats, snakes, roaches, and vermin. Now, every dominant group does this. Japan and China have a long history of animosity towards one another, and the Japanese military regarded the Chinese as subhuman. And in fact, you can see this all around the world. It's common during military training around the world to consider your enemy the other. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to kill them, because once you identify with them as human, once you can identify with them in any way, of course you would empathize with them, and in doing that you wouldn't be able to kill them. So this is so common, especially in the military. Of course, you have the Nazis who called Jews pigs, vermin, dogs, vipers, beasts, again, lice, insects, animals, and swine. Of course, pigs and rats are probably used commonly to really insult someone. Of course, in Rwanda, during that horrific genocide, the Hutus called the Tutsis insects, and then more specifically cockroaches. That was a word they specifically used, and it goes on and on and on. The idea is to first vilify, demean, and humiliate the one you want to control or the one you want to annihilate. And we use animal names to do this because in our society, the lowest of the low on the totem pole in terms of power are animals. Now, of course, we made it this way. So the swiftest way to demean a human is to call them an animal. And of course, within the animal kingdom, there's also a spectrum. So to call someone an animal is insulting, but even worse is to call someone a worm or a dog or, like I said, a pig or a rat or an insect, right, etc. Now, to make this effective, you have to first, this is what's so interesting, first, to make this effective, you have to attribute human characteristics to animals that everyone understands. We all have to agree that the animal embodies those characteristics that we abhor. And we've been successfully indoctrinated in this area. So if I were to ask you why it's an insult to call you the following animals, you would know right away. Now, you would know right away if you called someone a rat, what that means, right? Calling someone a rat means you're calling them smarmy and sneaky and deceptive and untrustworthy. These are all human characteristics. But when we say rat, we know immediately that that's what we're saying. If we call someone a pig, immediately we know that that means they're dirty or they're filthy or they're gluttonous or they're fat. right? So again, these are characteristics that immediately, as soon as you say pig, you know what that means in terms of insult. A monkey or a baboon, if you call someone a monkey, you're usually calling them foolish. You're talking about them just mimicking, right? Not having their own cognitive sophistication, but just mimicking. You're calling them childlike. A dog is usually referred to when you're calling someone ugly. An insect, insignificant, weak, lowly, creepy. A snake, kind of the same thing, creepy and lowly, manipulative, and of course the cause of the fall of humankind, right? So that snakes probably have it worse than anybody. So the question we have to ask is, do we agree with all these characterizations of animals because animals are intrinsically imbued with these characteristics, or is it that we've given them these characteristics so that we can separate ourselves from, quote unquote, the animals, and in doing so deny our own animalness and thus justify exploiting, hurting, and consuming them? In other words, if we conceded that we were like animals, if we conceded that we were animals, then we would be forced to reconsider how we use, exploit, and abuse them. And it doesn't stop there. To further this negative perception of animals, our language is full of idioms that reflect an absolute disdain for animals. Now, of course, every language has idioms. These are all English idioms, so they may not make sense to people who for whom English is their second language. And in fact, it's funny, learning any language when you start to learn the idioms, because idioms are not literal, but every language has them. And so I'm going to show you some idioms that we use every single day, without even being aware that we are, in my opinion, in using these idioms, contributing to our violence against animals. So if you take a look at some of these, to pig out, to sweat like a pig, someone's a road hog, fat as a hog, hogwash, eat high on the hog, a pig in a poke, make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, to shoot the bull, to take the bull by the horns, big enough to choke a cow, dirty rat, rat race, rat fink, to smell a rat. To kill two birds with one stone is so common. Someone's a bird brain, or a dead duck, or an ugly duckling. Someone's pigeon-toed. Cook one's goose, easy as duck soup. Go on a wild goose chase, to eat crow, to have an albatross hanging around your neck, to be a chicken, to chicken out, to get someone's goat, to separate the sheep from the goats, like a lamb to slaughter, to treat someone like a dog, mean as a junkyard dog, ugly as a dog in the doghouse. Something's fishy, easy as shooting fish in a barrel. Fish are cut bait, monkey see, monkey do, having a monkey on one's back, to bug someone. Snake in the grass, crazy as a June bug, stubborn as a mule. No use feeding a dead horse. Don't put the cart before the horse. To eat like a horse, hold your horses. Afraid a cat, scared a cat. More than one way to skin a cat. No room to swing a cat. Let the cat out of the bag. What's the cat doing in the bag in the first place? Open a can of worms, throw someone to the wolves, and the straw that broke the camel's back. So when you look at all of them at once, it's just amazing. I mean, just how often in our everyday language we use these words and these phrases that, in my opinion, contribute to violence against them. So we lower the status of humans by calling them animals, and of course it means that there's an agreement that animals are lower than humans. And then we lower the status of animals by taking away their inherent worth and seeing them as machines, as tools, as things for us to use. And that's ultimately where we're getting to. Right? The whole idea is to be able to control things, right? Because you can own things. You can control them. You can trade them, sell them, use them, commodify them, eat them. And of course, that's what we've done to animals. And I argue that it started with our domestication of them. Before we domesticated animals, about 10,000 years ago, we used to revere animals. They used to be, many of them were gods to people. We were just in awe of the characteristics that made them who they were, whoever they were. But you can see the difference now just in our language, just in our own idioms. You can see how that's not quite the case. We don't have this reverence for them anymore. And so, of course, to domesticate animals is to remove them from the wild and control them for human purposes. This is the ultimate control. When we commodify them, when we exploit them for their goods, for their skin, for their hair, for their milk, for their offspring, for their eggs, their value becomes defined only by the value they bring to us, only by how we can use them for our own purposes. They lose their intrinsic value. We take it from them. And once again, our language reflects this, even in the way we compartmentalize farm animals, right? Or circus animals or lab animals. It's as if they should be valued by what category they fall into that serves a purpose for humans. And we know what it means right away when we talk about these different categories. Now, as I said before, the word cattle is derived from the Latin word capitale, or capital, in the economic sense of the word. The Latin word for wealth, pecunia, comes from the word for cattle, which is pecu, and even the word fee. So you can know that. I mean, those who know Spanish, those who know Italian, know pecos is the Spanish word for cattle, and that comes from the Latin word pecu, which then becomes pecunia, Latin word that becomes pecuniary, which refers to wealth. And then you have the word fee. Even the word fee, referring to money, has to do with cattle. So this all goes back to cattle. So picus, meaning cattle, that's a Proto-Indo-European word that goes to Old English, meaning movable property or money. Cattle, going to fee, which is the word for money in English. And so all these words are related: cattle, capital, chattel, property, money, wealth, slave, pecuniary, and goods. They all have to do with the fact that owning livestock, and the word for cattle originally, the word cattle first originally referred to all livestock animals. It wasn't just bovines. So the word cattle was a measure, so cattle were a measure of worth, wealth and worth. So if you had wealth, you had cattle. If you had cattle, you had wealth. That was a measure of wealth. And I have an entire podcast episode on this. I have an entire podcast episode called The Taming of the Cattle, where I talk about this at great length, particularly about the history of the domestication of cattle in an attempt to return to our consciousness the fact that all domesticated animals were once wild, because we have absolutely forgotten that, because nobody's encouraging us to think that way. But domesticated animals have a history. They have an ancestry, but we've taken that away from them. I know a lot of you have probably read or seen Roots, right? The Alex Haley novel that was made into a very popular miniseries back in the 80s, and I think it was the 80s. And the whole idea is that it's through the story and the lens of this one character who learns about his own ancestry. He's a slave brought to the colonies, and he's made a slave, and he learns his own ancestry. And I've thought so often of doing that same thing, whether we're talking about cattle or chickens or birds who we now have domesticated. Or sheep or goats, or dogs and cats, is talking about their history, talking about their ancestry, because it's so important. Because when people say things like, well, the animals are here for us, that's why they're here, well, that's only like recently that animals have been bred to be here for us. Like, they were here long before we got here. So it's funny and sad at the same time that people are thinking the animals are here for us when we've basically created these domesticated animals we use and exploit today based on the wild animals. I mean, the story of the domestication of cattle, specifically of bovines, is so fascinating to me, and so you can hear more about that in The Taming of the Cattle. But we need to remember their history. We need to remember they have an ancestry. We've eliminated this from their story because it means we'd have to face our enslavement of them. We have forgotten their history because it would force us to look at our own. So having once been wild animals, to attribute this to them means that we don't own them, right? If we just look at their wildness, it means that they're not here for us, that they're not here for us to do with as we please. It means that we wouldn't be able to compartmentalize them. It means that if we raised their status, then what would it mean for our status? If we allowed them their own power, what would it mean for ours? And I think that's ultimately what happens when we're talking about any group that's in power, is that there's the fear that if you raise the status of the one you're controlling, that you will lose their power. And I think that's ultimately what's underneath all of our treatment of animals is fear, really, because really at heart, I know that we also are so connected to non-human animals in so many ways, but it's as if we're forgetting about it because we're afraid, and we're afraid to lose our own. And yet we don't merely deny them their wild ancestry or their history. We actually romanticize domestication to the degree that we say that animals were part of this mutual agreement, that as if they were in on the scheme. And Michael Pollan has written this in Omnivore's Dilemma, as if this is a benefit to them, which is an entirely different topic, and I won't get into it here. But so we deny them their wild ancestry, we deny them their history, and then, of course, which is very familiar sounding for anyone who's controlling another group, is we say, but they like it this way, and they were part of this, and there were benefits to this, and it's just so familiar sounding. I know you've heard that before. Now, my work is dedicated to changing our relationship with and our perception of non-human animals, because I think that's the foundation of our problems here. We see animals as here for us to use, and until we change that, animal abuse and exploitation will continue. But in order to change our relationship with and our perception of non-human animals, I believe we need to change the language we use to talk about animals, changing from a language of violence and exploitation and mockery to one of reverence and compassion and nonviolence. So I thought I would just offer some compassionate versions of some of the more violent idioms that I referred to earlier, and you can find a lot more of these in Vegan's Daily Companion, and I know you probably have your own as well. Now, for those of you who are new to this, when you're changing your language from familiar idioms, or in any time you're changing, it takes time for the transition to take place. So when you're changing from familiar idioms to unfamiliar ones, it feels strange in the beginning, it feels awkward, but as you replace the old with the new, the latter becomes more familiar and second nature. And this happens all the time, because I do use the compassionate idioms, and I'll be really honest, I use them so much, they're just such a part of my language now, my repertoire, is that I forget sometimes what the original violent versions were. So I have to think, what was that? I don't remember what the original was, because I'm so used to using the compassionate version. And it's really fun because you wind up seeing how other people react to it. And that is my favorite part, is when I say these compassionate versions, people go, what did you just say? And then they go, oh, wow, the original is pretty violent, isn't it? Oh, that's so cool. And they start really listening for it. It really makes people much more aware of their own language without hitting them over the head. And I do have no problem correcting people when, I have no problem correcting people. So if someone, let's look at the first one, for instance. So, kill two birds with one stone is such a common idiom that we use. And the way I say, cut two carrots with one knife. And I'll say that very naturally. And then people hear it, and it's a fun exchange. When I hear people say, kill two birds with one stone, I'll smile and say, or cut two carrots with one knife. And they'll hear that. I'm not saying, oh, don't say that, that's horrible and that's violent, how could you say that, that's awful, don't you hear what you're saying? I don't say that, because I'm not trying to scold them. That's not my intention. My intention is to mirror back what it is they said and offer them a kinder, more compassionate version. So all I have to say is, or cut two carrots with one knife, and they go, oh, I like that. I like that. I remember I was at a meeting. I mean, this happens all the time. I was at a meeting. It was for a city council member, actually, for her nomination, and she was at a house meeting talking to everybody, and she was giving her little spiel, and we had already had a conversation about the fact that she used to be vegan and is not anymore, and so I think she was already a little awkward around me, not because I made her feel that way, because I think she had her own stuff around that, because she seemed a little apologetic when she found out what I do for a living and what my life is about. And so anyway, it was fun because she was giving her spiel, and at one point she said, blah, 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 there's more than one way to skin a cat. And she stopped herself. Now, I don't believe it was because I was in the room. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I'm glad I was in the room because she said, God, that's so awful. I've always wanted a better alternative to that. And I said, there's more than one way to peel a potato. And she goes, oh, I love that. That's so great. I'm going to use that. And we talked about it later. So there was another opportunity to very casually but intentionally and compassionately offer a new version. There's more than one way to peel a potato, and there's more than one way to squeeze a lemon. The whole idea is that you're not using the literal term because that's not as fun, because language is a wonderful, fun, growing, living, breathing thing, and words are wonderful, so it's just so much better. The idea is to get the point across in a way that's visual. And I will say this, there are a lot of variations of the kill two birds with one stone. Like there are a lot of variations of the compassionate versions. I don't love a lot of them because some of them don't make any sense. Because some of them say things, because I don't want people to get distracted so far away from what the point of the idiom is. I want them to use an idiom that's really powerful, that's really effective. That's why we use these idioms, that they're visual. So there's one, I know it's very sweet. It's very sweet. People will say things like, I feed two birds with one scone. Now, I think they're trying to rhyme with the kill two birds with one stone, and I feed two birds with one scone. That might make someone go, oh, how cute, but it doesn't make any sense because it's not getting a point. It's not getting the point across of what you're doing two things at once that is a complicated thing to do, and rather than waste your time doing, multiples, you just do one at the same time. I mean, that's the idea of the idiom, right? So I don't know. That one is funny to me. So I wanted to be really visual. So cut two carrots with one knife makes sense. People really get the idea. But feed two birds with one scone. I don't know. Birds don't eat scones. Well, I don't know. Maybe they do. Okay, so, so that's another one. There's no use beating a dead horse. I mean, that's such a horrible imagery. I mean, right? That's the worst of it. Maybe they didn't kill the horse, but it's this awful imagery of a dead horse being beaten. Well, what conveys the idea of doing something that makes absolutely no sense is there's no use watering a dead flower. Love it, right? Another one is let's shoot the bull. So that's just an expression of let's just talk, let's just chat. So, but once you look at it, then you're like, wait, you're shooting a bull. Let's shoot the breeze. It's a little more compassionate. So yeah, I guess you're still shooting. Okay, so someone who doesn't want to use that, you just say let's talk. Because you don't want to shoot, I don't know what to tell you. Take the bull by the horns. Take the plunge, or I like take the bicycle by the handlebars, something like that, or jump in with both feet. Take the plunge. That's the idea. Take the bull by the horns. Take the bicycle by the handlebars. I mean, it becomes fun to kind of come up with other ones. And as other people, as people who might not be vegan yet, when they're talking to you and they hear themselves say a more violent version, they, in your presence, will hear themselves. That's what's so beautiful about being the vegan in the room. They'll hear themselves and they'll try to find a correction. And not everyone needs a correction. That's not what I'm going to talk about here, because there are some that they're not so bad. And I do talk about that in a podcast episode. There are compassionate expressions where we mention animals, and of course we don't want to remove animals from our language. So there are plenty of idioms where they're not violent. But what I'm talking about here is replacing violent ones with non-violent ones. Pigeonhole is a really interesting one. We say that a lot, and we say that very, very effortlessly. And it wasn't until I was in a small town in Tuscany, in Italy, that I actually saw pigeonholes, because the idea, pigeonholes really are a real thing, especially, back in Roman times and past that, where people would raise pigeons for consumption. They would keep them in these large rooms and carve out just kind of areas, perches basically in the wall where the pigeon would roost. And that's the pigeonhole. So the idea is that you're raising these animals specifically to eat them, to kill them, and eat them. And these rooms would consist of pigeonholes. So I was in this town. I'm blanking on the name of it. I don't think it was Orvieto, but it was a town where the town was built on this rock, basically on rock. And it was very sandy. You were able to carve it very easily. And so we were down in this one room, and I saw pigeonholes. So it doesn't really strike you until you actually see it, or of course your imagination can of course call it to mind. But instead of pigeonhole, and this was one that a few years ago, once I saw those pigeonholes, I don't say that anymore. I say to compartmentalize, and that's the idea. And people can hear that, like they can see it. It's still visual to compartmentalize. So you still convey the idea without recalling this unpleasant thing. Open a can of worms. Worms don't belong in a can. So I always say open a can of spaghetti. I love open a can of spaghetti. I say it all the time. People hear it and they love it. They love it. It comes very effortlessly to me. To pig out, I hear a lot of people say this. You know, again, we say these things without really thinking, and that's what I'm suggesting, is that we think about what we're saying, to eat like a pig. So instead of saying that, we can say to be gluttonous, because that's the idea. Don't put the cart before the horse. Instead of that, we can say, don't put your shoes on before your socks. And again, the idea is that putting a cart before a horse, horse is pulling a cart. You know, I'm just imagining this kind of more exploitative situation for the horse. And so instead of putting the cart before the horse doesn't have to pull anything at all. Don't put your shoes on before your socks, or don't slice the bread before it's baked. Sometimes, what have we said? Like, don't put the, it's funny, don't put the basket before the bicycle. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so with a little creativity, you can come up with your own compassionate versions, and I'd love to hear your own. And like I said, we can gently correct people when they say the more violent ones. Now, returning to our language of food, one of the things I focus on in my work is taking veganism out of the box. Because, of course, when we're talking about vegan food, I always put the word vegan in quotation marks, my little air quotes, because vegan food is just food, right? It's fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and beans and mushrooms and grains and herbs and spices. Most of us don't say we're about to have vegan food when we have an apple. We don't call it a vegan apple. Can I have a vegan banana? Please, may I have a vegan apple? We just say apple because we know it's just plant-based. We know it's just a plant. So we know it's quote-unquote vegan by nature. We don't eat vegan bananas, we just eat bananas. And this is one of the reasons I try not to talk about vegan food as something separate from food that people are already eating and already familiar with. I want to demystify this for people. I don't want people to feel like you have to be part of a club to eat it. And when people realize they're already eating quote-unquote vegan food, they just don't call it vegan, it's so much less scary, it's so much less intimidating for people, it's so demystified for people, because we're talking about real food. Too often, we use words that make plant-based food seem unreal. This is real food, right? But the words we use and the language we use, we, including people who are vegan, including vegans, we use words that make these real foods seem unreal and certainly unappetizing. If we reclaim the language around plant-based foods, I think we can go a long way in mainstreaming the vegan ethic. And that's why I never use words like faux, fake, mock, imitation, substitute, analog, replacement, or alternative. When we call these things, when we say these words, it's so unappetizing. We are not going to appeal to anybody if we use these words. And it's one of those things, I don't know, it's one of these things that it's so ingrained in us, because I hear so many vegans use the word fake, talking about fake meat. I don't eat fake meat. I don't eat analogs. I eat real foods, and I reflect this in my language. I even propose that we take back the word meat. It comes from the Old English word meta, which originally referred to something that was eaten and not drunk. It distinguished between solid food and a beverage. And we already say this when we say coconut meat. We still say coconut meat. That's still left over. We say nut meat, right? It's the substance of the thing. So why shouldn't we embrace grain meat, or plant-based meats or vegan meats. You can say what it's made from: bean-based wheat meat, soy meat, right? The idea is to take back this word because it is quite literally, it's a solid food made from real foods, real ingredients. When we call plant foods fake, we're demeaning the compassionate way we live, and we're agreeing with the status quo, with the dominant animal eating culture, that the barometers by which we should measure everything else are meat, dairy, and eggs. That everything that's not is a substitute and inferior to meat, dairy, and eggs. We are perpetuating that and reinforcing that every time we say plant foods are fake. And so same thing with milk. We do not drink milk substitutes. The only imposter in our diets is animals' milk, right? Animal milk became a substitute for human milk, which is the only milk we need to consume until we're weaned. So we didn't consume milk alternatives. We don't consume milk substitutes. Non-vegans don't drink regular milk, and they don't drink real milk, and vegans don't drink milk spelled M-Y-L-K. We drink milk made from plants. And so I encourage people to say this. I think this one's more common. I think people do a better job of saying plant-based milks, or what they're made from: soy milk, almond milk, rice milk, oat milk, coconut milk, than they do with meats. The meats, I'm still really, really pushing for people to kind of really work on practicing changing that language. But milks, but I do hear, I think people say often regular milk. They'll say regular milk or real milk. And I'll do the same thing. I mean, I will gently correct someone I'm talking to, and again, I do it with a smile, and people get it. And I don't put milk in quotes. It's not an alternative. It's not. I'm not eating irregular milk. I'm not consuming human milk. So what's regular? I mean, it's just it doesn't convey a positive. And it doesn't convey positiveness, and it doesn't convey the truth. So, and I refer to animal-based milk the same. I am seeing this happen more. I'm seeing that people are referring to animal-based milks and versus plant-based milks, and I'm seeing that people are referring to cow's milk and goat's milk and human milk, because when we do that, it really reminds us that the animal is there, kind of like what we were saying before. Same thing with butter. People will say fake butter a lot. I talk about non-dairy butter versus dairy-based butter, or I'll say, plant-based butter. I do not say real butter to refer to dairy-based butter. I won't say regular, and I don't talk about it as margarine either. So obviously the most popular butter out there is Earth Balance, and so a lot of us will just say Earth Balance. When I'm talking to non-vegans who are unfamiliar with Earth Balance, I will say non-dairy butter, and then the first question they have is, oh, so what's it made from? I mean, they're usually using the word fake, and it's so easy to just say we're talking about fat, because butter really refers to fat more than anything else. If you think about peanut butter, almond butter, nut butters, right? Cocoa butter, coconut butter. It really has more to do with fat than anything else. It has more to do with fat than animal secretions. That's what butter really means. So I will say, when they say, well, what's the fake butter made from? They'll say, for instance, and I'll say, it's just fat. It's just plant-based oils instead of the fat of animals. And they go, oh, yeah, that's okay. That's a good point. And then they might say, what are the oils made of? And then you can talk about that. So the idea is to just get people to really go, oh, yeah, that's not so weird. That's not fake. And the truth is, it's not margarine. I mean, margarine to me conveys something very specific, which is that it's made from trans fats. And of course, the butter and the Earth Balance that I love and recommend is not made with trans fats. So I don't use the word margarine either. When it comes to cheese, same thing, dairy-based cheese versus non-dairy cheese, but name it based on what it's made from. You can say nut-based cheese or cashew-based cheese or soy milk-based cheese or almond cheese, but I don't say regular cheese to refer to non-dairy cheese or to dairy-based cheese, and I don't say real, and I certainly don't say fake. When referring to eggs, I do like to distinguish between chickens' eggs. And I don't know, maybe someone's talking about human eggs, maybe they're talking about robin's eggs. And this might be done in a really playful way with someone who just says eggs, or I'll say chicken's eggs, and they'll hear it go, whoa, chicken's, like, oh, yeah, chicken's eggs, right? Because they're from a chicken versus from a robin. So they hear it for the first time. We're putting the animal back into this commodified product. And I'm not trying to do this to be to be provocative. I also, when I say things like anything that comes out of an animal, I really do use the word secretions. I love the word secretions. Those of you who know my work know I love the word secretions, mostly because it's so powerful and it's, well, it's true. It's a fact. It's a secretion. When we say products, it really refers to the commodified thing that we've made for sale that comes out of the animal or comes off of the animal. So I'll use the word product sometimes, but I'll often use it in quotes, and I'll be aware that I'm saying it in context, but I prefer to talk about the flesh and secretions, or the flesh and fluids of animals. And I'm not doing this to be provocative. I'm not doing it to shock, but I am doing it to pull people out of their cognitive dissonance without offending them, because my intention is not to offend anybody. My intention is to use words that reflect truth, not words that have shock value. So I know there are some people who say things like eggs or chicken periods. I'm not going to say that, because I'm not doing that. That's not going to endear people to me. They will be turned off by that. Once I say chickens, eggs, or I say secretions, they go, oh, secretions. They're still with me because I didn't do it to shock them, but they might go, God, I guess it is secreted from the animal, isn't it? And then we can talk about what an egg really is as part of the reproductive cycle of a chicken, but I'm not going to say something like chicken periods, because I think it's just meant to shock. Same thing with corpse muncher. Like, I'm not going to say that because it is so offensive, and I'm not trying to offend. But I will say flesh, because I'm trying to be truthful. So I walk that line of being truthful without being offensive, and that's the bottom line. I don't want to turn people off. I really want to have a dialogue with people, and I think you can go to the other extreme and turn people off without making them think. Then when they walk away, they're thinking about me and how offensive I am, rather than thinking about the animals. And I don't want people to think about me. I want them to think about how they don't have to contribute to violence against animals. An example of how we're so inured to the violence of our language and desensitized to who we're eating is when we say things like, do you eat chicken? Do you eat turkey? Do you eat duck? Do you eat fish? And this is fascinating to me. I just said that about the secretions versus animal products. So, we say this pretty, it's what we say. We say, do you eat chicken? I don't eat chicken anymore. I don't eat turkey anymore. That's how we say it. People think nothing of this. But when you say, instead of do you eat chicken, because when we say that, there's no animal there anymore. But if you said, do you eat chickens, immediately, by just adding that S, immediately puts the animal back into that word, right? Now, it's interesting because I talked about earlier how the Anglo-Saxon word referred to both the animal alive and dead, and the French word inured us to that. But here, these are Anglo-Saxon words, right? Because now the dead animal comes to mind when we say chicken, right? So we need a new way of pulling people out of that and thinking of the live animal, and I think this is a subtle and effective way to do it, because if you say to someone, do you eat chicken? They go, yeah, I love chicken. I eat chicken all the time. Do you eat chickens? They'll go, no, I don't eat chickens. Like, immediately they'll be like, what? But if you say, do you eat turkey? They'll go, yep, that's what they think of when you say, do you eat turkey? But if you say, do you eat turkeys? They go, I don't. Don't say that. Don't make me think of that living animal. Do you eat duck? Right? That's that kind of singular version of that word. Do you eat duck versus do you eat ducks? Immediately they think of the ducks. And same with fish. Do you eat fish? Instead of saying do you eat fishes? And yes, fishes is a perfectly proper plural version of fish. We do use fish as a plural and a singular, but fishes is perfectly acceptable as the plural, and it immediately puts the animal back into that word. And because people are so steeped in this language, they will hear the difference. They will hear the difference when you say that, and they will stop in their tracks. It's as if they're hearing it for the very first time, and it like yanks them out of their comfort zone. It puts the animals back into our language and our thoughts, talking about them not as dismembered body parts, but as beautiful, living, feeling, thinking beings. Speaking of whom, Linus, who some of you have seen that photo of me and Linus, I'll have to tell you that story later, but he is just one of the most incredible beings I have the pleasure of knowing and interacting with. His name's Linus. So ultimately, this is all to say, through our language, all of us, support and participate in a system that belittles animals, minimizes their suffering, advocates violence, perpetuates cognitive dissonance, commodifies animals, and legitimizes and conceals our institutionalized abuse of them. By changing our language, we change our perceptions. And when our perceptions are changed, they're reflected in our language. I personally believe that change will occur for animals only as we change, only as we, the ones who hold the power, change their status in our society. And one of the ways we change their status is by changing our perception of them. And one of the ways we do this is by changing the way we talk about them. Our liberation from our violence towards animals and towards each other is not going to come until we change this paradigm. And every word we choose can contribute to upholding the existing paradigm that sees animals as ours to hurt, ours to kill, ours to eat, ours to use, as ours to do with whatever we please. Or we can choose language that reflects a compassionate paradigm, one that sees animals as ours to share this planet with, not as subjects of ours, but as cohabitants, as fellow earthlings. We can shift that paradigm every time we open our mouths to speak. And in this compassionate paradigm, it would be a compliment and not an insult to be called an animal. After all, that's who we are. In embracing our animal selves, human animals would find humility, and non-human animals would be raised up, perhaps not as gods, but as whole, complex, wondrous beings worthy of dignity and respect, where their bodies and their offspring are theirs to claim and cherish, not ours to use and destroy. In this compassionate paradigm, we would value animals for who they are and not for what we gain by them. And we would recognize that we're a lot more like them, and they're a lot less like us than we've let ourselves believe. In this compassionate paradigm, we would be worthy of being called an animal whose root word means soul, something human animals are in danger of losing if we continue to deny non-human animals theirs. And so, thanks for listening. That's all I have to say on that subject. And so I'll stop sharing my screen and come back to you guys so you can continue the...
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you, Colleen. I mean, that was so illuminating. Wow, Mark, she's got a way of presenting that information, right?
Yeah, totally. That was amazing and completely aligned.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like to, in my classes, I refer to the old adage where if you give a person a piece of tofu, you could feed him for a day, but if you show him how to bake the tofu, you could feed him for a lifetime.
Nice.
Well, we're going to give you your chance at home. We're going to open up for some Q&A in just a few minutes here. We're probably going to get to that pretty quick, right, Mark? And I'm going to I'm going to put up a survey question, and we're going to go into another segment here about Vegan Survivor. So I'm going to put that on your screen right now, and it says, "Are you a member of the Vegan Survivor tribe?" We want to know, are you part of the tribe? Because we're wondering, everyone came here from different newsletters, let's say. So. Yeah. Let's just run that poll because we want to explain and offer a little bit about that program too.
Great. Were you going to do the camera for Colleen?
What do you mean?
This phase we were going to do the Survivor part.
Right. Right, and then we're going to do the Survivor part and then bring Colleen back for the Q&A. Wasn't that the plan?
Yes.
Yeah. So Colleen, you can go ahead and cut your camera. And we'll return to you. I'm going to end that poll. We'll bring Colleen back in about 10 minutes. We'll be offering a giveaway at that time, too, and we'll let you know more about that. So thank you for tuning in. So 88%...
Colleen, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Amazing.
Thank you.
Well, it's just the beginning. So cool. We have 88% said no, Mark, and 12% said yes.
Okay, great. So we'll share a little bit about Vegan Survivor for you guys. It's the sponsoring.
Yeah. That is because we're going to have an offer for you to join the tribe and getting coming off of what Colleen was just talking about, it's kind of hard to make an offer like this, but it's such an incredible deal because we want to be part of the tribe, and we want to get back to Colleen. So just a little about me and Mark. We together, we have a few books out, as you can see here, and publish the #1 vegetarian magazine in Apple's newsstand. So I've got some books on juicing. Mark's written lots of books on vegan and raw food. And we produce Juice Guru Radio, which is on iHeartRadio. It goes out to over 1 million people on that network. So we can't wait to have Colleen on that show as well, just to get her message out. Just incredible. We also produce an online juicing certification program where we teach people to lead juice programs. I'm going to cut my camera. And Mark also teaches a certification program where he teaches vegan chefs on creating businesses around vegan and raw food. So that's a little bit about us. But a few questions, and this revolves around this Vegan Survivor program, is are you passionate like us about protecting the animals?
And would you like to serve as a model of health and have health be what you bring into this world?
Would you like to become part of a bigger tribe interested in the same goals? Then we want to show you our program. It's Vegan Survivor, self-paced, new you in 10 days. It's a self-paced program. And let's explain a little more in detail about this transformational 10-day experience.
And the methodology of the program is advocated by doctors and nutritionists, and it's a proven formula.
We've used it effectively on thousands of tribe members, and like I said earlier, it's self-paced. It can be accessed throughout the year. We're offering something tonight where we want to start this week, so we'll let you know about that. But is this the kind of thing for you? If you're looking to lose weight for good and get healthy and change your life permanently, then this is the program would be for you.
If you're tired of going it alone and want to be part of a tribe and improving our health, then it's for you.
If you'd like to end unhealthy dieting patterns once and for all, this is for you. This program really is the solution. And full disclosure here, between the 3 creators of this program, we have over 100 years of experience in the field of healthy living, and 4 of the world's leading holistic doctors sit on our advisory board, and we've worked with hospitals and clinics all over the United States. So let's answer, what can Vegan Survivor do for you? If you're looking to slim down and maintain your ideal body weight in a fun way,
prevent and reverse acute and chronic disease,
strengthen your immune system to ward off toxins, radiation, viruses, and other environmental threats, all in 10 days, as we like to say.
Yes.
This is a self-paced program, so you can begin when you want. We recommend you start on a Tuesday, and we're all going to start together as a tribe next Tuesday, so we're going to give you that opportunity to do it with us, which is a lot of fun. But here's the program. We're going to give it to you. You don't have to sign up. We're going to show you what the protocol is. You can even do it on your own. Days 1 and 2 of the program, you would consume cooked vegan food.
Then you would go into a lighter mode of eating and have 2 days of raw vegan foods.
And then on days 5 and 6, which is the weekend, which is why we start on the Tuesday, this is where we go deeper, where we're consuming juices and smoothies.
Day 7 and 8, after the peak cleansing days, you start to introduce heavier foods, so you go into the raw vegan foods.
And transitioning back to days 9 and 10, you've got the cooked vegan diet. In our modules, we've got video modules that go along with it. In the first one, you find out the background and relevance of plant-based foods so you can understand where you get your protein, vitamin B12, and calcium. And I know Colleen teaches a lot of her audience about that.
And we go over how to plan, shop, and prepare amazing vegan foods so you can take the guesswork out of the first 2 days of the program.
And we'll give you inside tips on budget-friendly meals so you don't have to break the bank. And it's just incredible. I mean, we've got an online Facebook private community, and everyone's posting their pictures of the foods they're creating. It's just, isn't that amazing part of the program, Mark?
Yeah, the tribe aspect of it and the support everyone gets together, really, it continues to inspire me.
In Module 2, this is where we go into the living foods. It becomes demystified so you can have a full understanding of the culinary possibilities and nutritional cleansing benefits.
And again, we'll show you how to shop and prepare the amazing raw vegan foods to make it easy for those days of the program.
And again, in this module, budget-friendly protocols, so you don't need those expensive equipment and gadgets like dehydrators or high-powered blenders. Not necessary. In Module 3, we take you into the nutritional benefits of raw juices and smoothies, so you recapture your youthful energy.
And it's broken down into different juicing levels, so you could gauge where you're at and go as deep as you want in those 2 days of the program.
Yeah, I should mention on that, it depends where you were going in and how deep you want to cleanse. And so we kind of meet you where you are with the 3 different levels. But then we include important tips for successful transition back to your regular diet during days 7 through 10. And we wrap it up in Module 4 with stories of transformation. We open to sharing circles, which we'll be doing periodically throughout the year so we can learn which strategies work best to regain your own health and influence others.
And also really important how to inspire others, like Colleen was talking about, of living a vegan lifestyle.
And how to stay on track with your new healthy lifestyle so you can continue to experience thriving health and total transformation. You're getting the exact system we use to transform the lives of thousands and the tools to inspire those around you towards the sustainable way of eating and living. So we include in the program the module. So you get the manual, workbook, shopping list, course guide. We put a value of $240, but it's really priceless. It's full color images. It could actually be published as a book.
So all the recipes that you use for the program, a beautiful graphic. It's very helpful to making these changes.
Then we include the ability to bring a buddy to do this with you for free. It's optional. You don't have to, but we're going to allow you to bring a buddy through the program with you for accountability, and that's included in your membership. And like we mentioned before, the tribe community building and coaching for motivation, support, and team building as we evolve. The program doesn't end after 10 days. And then we include these bonuses. So you'll get a limited time bonus. We're not going to have this in the program forever, but you're going to get 3 video Vegan Survivor cooking lessons with Mark Reinfeld and myself on juicing to take the guesswork out of cooked vegan and raw food smoothies and juicing prep. That's included in the program. And we're including an annual subscription to, we mentioned Veg World Magazine. You're going to get, actually it's 27 issues now, all 27 back issues with a value of over $139. You can get instant access to that. I can talk deeper about that, but then we've got Vegan Palooza. Actually, Colleen was a speaker at this event in 2012. We had the leading medical doctors, celebrities, nutritionists, and plant-based living. I produced this with Dr. Will Tuttle. You can see Colleen's right there on the image in the second row on the right. This has a value of $97, and we're going to include this for you as part of this special offer we're doing for the tribe tonight. Oh, and Mark, do you want to talk about the final bonus here where we include our transformation ebook series?
Yeah, the B book is amazing. It's a very self-empowering book. It's one of my actually favorite go-to books, as well as some books by Bo Rinaldi, Vegan Myths, Healing Stories, and Coconut Oil Villain or Saint.
This package alone has a value over $60 because the B-Book Secrets, if you went right now to bbooksecrets.com, I was actually selling it for $97. We lowered the price to $50, but that alone includes the audiobook and the B-Book Secrets itself. And we could have a whole webinar about the B-Book Secrets, but we include that to cap off the transformation. So let's just talk about the price before we bring Colleen back. And normally if you add in all the value, the bonus gifts and everything, it'd be over $1,000 for this program. But we're not doing that. We're putting it out as part of this webinar for the next 24 hours for the next 100 people that sign up for $47. And we do that because to us, we want to really build community and build the tribe and just make it affordable. We make the bonus gifts, even one of the bonus gifts is more than $47. I've kind of just put everything I had into this, Mark.
Yeah, and it's where both Steve and I are deeply committed to promoting the plant-based lifestyle and embodying health, and to go along with our convictions is really crucial, and this program can help people jumpstart their health. And if you're new to a plant-based lifestyle, it's based on the testimonials and feedback we get from current members. It's really a powerful way to bring this our love for animals and desire to have a more peaceful world into the physical realm with our health.
Well, the exciting thing is it doesn't end once you sign up. As you see, this event tonight is part of Vegan Survivor, our continuing education series. So you get these workshops. We've had Dr. Will Tuttle, Ellen Jaffe-Jones on paleo vegan. We've got more coming up throughout the year, and it's really exciting. So you're part of a community and you're part of a tribe. And this event tonight, we all grow together with every event that we produce.
Yeah,
so
super inspiring.
So here's what to do next. You can see the button to find out more on the right. You'll find my wife, Julie, on the other side. She's in a video welcoming you. She's very much part of the community and the tribe, and you can find out more about the program at vegansurvivor.com. That's where it'll take you. Once you sign up, you'll get access to the program and all the bonuses that I included here when you log in. You'll get a link to our private community tribe. We can even approve you tonight on the private Facebook page so we can start interacting with tribe members, and you'll need to confirm an email for course announcements and town hall meetings like tonight so you're in the know of what's happening next. So let's just recap before we bring Colleen out again, Mark, because we've got some gifts coming out tonight too. So if you're looking to slim down and maintain your ideal body weight in a fun and interactive way,
prevent and reverse the diseases that are prevalent in our society,
strengthen your immune system to ward off disease,
and finally find a way to get your friends and family on board with your amazing lifestyle.
That's why we have the Bring a Buddy. We want you to bring that relative that makes fun of your diet and say, hey, here, why don't you try the vegan challenge with me? Or the Vegan Survivor. It's vegansurvivor.com. I know we've got a gift going out about the vegan challenge. We'll talk more about that, but I got confused for a minute. It's www.vegansurvivor.com to find out more, and we hope to see you in the tribe.
Awesome.
I want to, I wanted to go deeper and tell them about the money back guarantee, Mark, but just
Sure.
You'll see it on the page. You'll see that you can go through the program. If you don't like it, within 30 days, we'll give you your money back. So you get the 4 modules, the course material, Bring a Buddy for free, the Vegan Survivor workshops, those 3 workshops, all the Veg World magazines, 27 issues of the magazine. It's interactive. There are videos. We've got chefs like Mark Reinfeld showing you how to make recipes right in the magazine. You get that. Vegan Palooza 2012, Colleen Patrick-Goudreau is a featured speaker on that event, as well as many others. And the Transformation ebook series featuring our B-book secrets, which we love, all for one payment of $47, the money-back guarantee. So you can go through the program. If you don't like it, we're going to give you your money back. Not a problem. Just send us an email and let us know it wasn't for you, and that's that.
Awesome.
So I think that covers it. You can access the tribe and join, get all the incredible bonus gifts, and the can't lose money back guarantee. Like we said, we have 100 units available, 100 spots. Once those are filled, we'll be closing this offer. So, and we've had over 400 sign up. The replay will be going out, and we'll be keeping this up for 24 hours. So that's that. I think that brings us to the end of that segment, Mark, but I know we've got a prize giveaway coming up here.
Sure. How about for my prize? Okay, we'll do Colleen's first.
Yeah, and we can bring Colleen back on for that. And this is going to be a trivia question. I think we should base this on something from tonight. And I think I'm going to turn the chat box back on because that's going to make it easy to get some of these questions and to do the contest. And okay, so your chat box is on the right side of your screen. If the offer is still up, just go ahead and click chat, and you'll be back on. You'll be back in the chat room with us here, and that's where you can type in the response to the trivia question, which we're about to ask. And I think it should be around. Colleen, do you want to ask the question? I can turn the camera over to you if you want to.
Sure.
Okay, I've got the camera on Colleen. Again, this is for Colleen's free gift. It's the 30-day vegan challenge. And she's also offering at joyfulvegan.com, when you sign up on her mailing list, you've got something there too, Colleen. Do you want to tell them a little about that and the 30-day vegan challenge?
Yeah, I mean, the 30-day vegan challenge, we're doing a giveaway for the online program where people get daily videos and messages and audio messages, and then also the book, the hardcover book. So that's a 30-day vegan challenge. And then sign up at joyfulvegan.com for my mailing list, and I'm also going to give you a copy of the ebook of On Being Vegan.
Great. Okay, so I'm typing in the box right now, joyfulvegan.com. I'm going to display that at the top of the chat room so you can see the link right there, and yeah. So it's right at the top of the chat room if you want to click that link for that. But this trivia question, you'll have to type in your response, and there's always a problem because some people are watching on delay and there's no really other way to do it. So we're just going to go with the first person to type it in. They're the ones that are in sync with the presentation, and they're the ones who are going to win. So Colleen, go ahead. What's the trivia question right now?
Oh, do I know what the trivia question is? I haven't been told.
Wait a minute. I'm going to go back. Mark, do you have the trivia question, or I have it? Okay, I don't want to give it away because my screen's being shared right now. I wanted to go back to one of the idioms, okay? And I wanted the trivia question to be. I want to see how well everyone's paying attention. I would like to know what the idiom for "there's more than two ways to skin a cat." And the first person to type that in, there's more than. Isn't that how it goes? More than one way to spit. It's a horrible phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right.
There's more than one. Look, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So, what is a better way to say that? According to the presentation, what's a better way? And the first person to type that in the chat room will win the 30-day vegan challenge. Compliments of Colleen, and then we've got a giveaway coming from Mark for those who actually stayed on to check all this out. Chat room is open, and this is the fun part because there's this 60-second delay. So now, okay. Oh, okay, Veronica. There's more than one way to peel a potato.
Good.
That was
Lots of potato peeling going on.
I think we've got a winner there, Colleen.
I think so.
All right, I'm going to go. Now everyone's typing in.
Well done.
Veronica, I'm going to reply. You won. Please, I'm going to tell her to private message. Please private message your email. And congrats. Okay. And I will get that over to you, Colleen, after the event, and we'll get you all set up. Veronica, congratulations for that. Lots of answers coming in. Do you see those, Mark, on the right side of the screen? Oh,
yeah.
Colleen, you can see them too, right?
Oh, well done, everybody.
Squeezing a lemon.
Yep, that's right. That was the other one. Well done.
Well done. Who said that?
The lemon one.
Oh, was that Mariah?
God, there's so many.
Wow, congrats. Well, great. And everybody is a winner because if you go to joyfulvegan.com and sign up on the mailing list, you're a winner too. So, Mark, what are you offering here tonight?
Mine was going to be asked, and only Colleen may know the answer better than I would, but what is Colleen's 4th published cookbook?
Oh, that's a hard one.
All right.
I tend to give hard questions.
Her 4th one.
Well, I would say my 4th book.
Her 4th book.
Let's say that. Then that's kind of a hint.
Okay.
And that's for the Cooking Healthy Lessons. Do you want to talk about that? Because I know as part of Vegan Survivor, there's an opportunity to get the Cooking Healthy Lessons, but it's not free. So do you want to talk a little about that program? It's really valuable.
Sure. Then the Cooking Healthy Lessons is an online culinary course that we offer, which it's a version of the 10-day trainings that I offer internationally, and really empowers you to learn the basics of vegan and raw food cuisine. And the recipes are super helpful for the Vegan Survivor program. Mm-hmm. I may need to pick another question. How about
wait. Give them a minute because remember the 60-second delay. Okay. But right now I had posted there's more than one way to peel a potato from Veronica. I gave her credit. It's on the screen right now.
So, well, Colleen, I'll open up the challenge to you if you want a free membership to Cooking Healthy Lessons.
Oh, you're funny. Wait, Mary said 30-day vegan challenge.
So, okay, so there's a little bit of a problem because, okay, so the first one who got the correct answer is Ivars. Is that his name? Your name?
Ivars.
Because Ariel did say daily vegan, but she may have meant that because it's called Vegan's Daily Companion, but I also have, there's this journal that's out right now called The Daily Vegan. So there is one title by that name, Ariel. So so I think that maybe what she meant.
Maybe we can give them a vegan survivor too, then, huh, Mark?
Ariel and Ivars. I'm going to let you figure it out, but I have
Ariel?
both of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Ariel, we're going to throw in a prize for you. We're going to give you access to Vegan Survivor. What do you think, Mark?
Sure. So the official title would go to Ivers then, the Vegan's Daily Companion.
That's right.
So
Okay.
you could, Ivers, if you could, should we get their contact?
Well, what I did is I private messaged you all to the three winners. I wrote, you won, please private message me your email address. And you can either reply to your webinar announcements with that and just let me know. Just actually you'll get, before this, 15 minutes before tonight, before we began, you received an email. Just reply to that, or on the replay you can reply to that and just let me know, and I'll forward that on. But it's time for the Q&A. Can I get a drum roll on that? Can I? It's time for you. Actually, we're going to turn over the microphone to you, sitting here with us. And we actually can give you the opportunity, if you want to come on live, you can, let's see, I think they have an option where you can type in the box, I'd like to come on live, and we can turn your camera on for your question or put you in the queue if there are a few, or you can type in your question. So either one. So if any questions you have for Colleen, go ahead and type it in the chat box right now. And right, Colleen, you'll be taking those questions?
Yeah, that's right.
Great. Okay, so we're giving time for that. Ivar says yay. He's glad that he won.
And just Colleen, that was just really amazing and very empowering. I'm really into the languaging aspect of things, so I appreciated that whole perspective. And it's always, for me, it's always good as a long-term vegan to just get that refresher inspiration and just realize the importance of emanating a nonviolent life, and the communication is so crucial to that. So thank you for all of your amazing work and just what you shared with us tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
I second that. And I'm sitting here producing the event, but wow, that was just powerful. A lot of the language, it's amazing how much of it we're on autopilot, and we're almost like robotic in the way we speak.
It's true. That's what's so powerful about when you change it. It's really so amazing, and people hear it as if they're hearing it for the first time. And like I said, because it's so ingrained in us, it takes some practice. It just takes some practice to change it a little bit, but it can be done.
So here's some questions coming in.
Okay, we'll start with Laura. I'm going to broadcast it up on the screen. What can I feed my dogs is the question.
So I think anybody would tell you that there are a lot of really good commercial vegan dog foods out there, because dogs just physiologically are omnivores, and so they do great. And there's so many foods now on the market that there are so many variations as well, including those that don't have typical allergens for dogs. So I would just practice with, or try different ones. I know so many people who love V-Dog. There's a lot of different brands out there. And, anybody would say do it slowly, so that if they're used to animal-based food, that they eventually, slowly incorporate the plant vegan food. And cats, even though that wasn't your question, it's probably the #1 question I get is, what do I feed my cats? Because people know I have my cats and love my cats so much, and I make that pretty clear. And so, cats physiologically are carnivores, and I do feed my cats animals. I feed them, they basically get aquatic animals, and I do feed them animals. But dogs do great on a vegan diet.
And Mary is asking, do you think it is best not to present food so that it looks like typical animal food? And then her second question is, what about animal print clothing? And she was saying not fake fur.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so do I think it's best not to present? Do I think it's best to not present food so that it looks like typical animal food? I don't know if what you're talking about, Mary, and you can confirm this in the chat because I can see it. If what you're talking about is kind of like roast beef but vegan versions of, or kind of seitan medallions that would typically be animal based, or if that's what you're asking, I don't have a problem with that. And so it's a matter of walking this line between familiarity, because that plays such a huge role in our food choices. So there's a reason food scientists spend so much time and so much money is spent on plant-based versions of familiar foods looking like those familiar foods, right? Those familiar products. So that's why we have hot dogs. We have vegan hot dogs that look exactly like, animal-based hot dogs. Not because this shape of this thing, is so necessary in our consumption of food, right? It's just that it's so familiar. It's such a huge part of our culture specifically, that means something to people, that there's an immediate association with what that sounds like, with what that tastes like, with what that looks like. And so I'll use coconut bacon, right, as an expression, as a title of a recipe of mine. Now, I just went through that whole presentation, and I did say that bacon very specifically means the back of a pig, right? So am I contradicting myself? Okay, so I contradict myself, as Walt Whitman says. So I contradict myself. But I don't have a problem with that, because in that case, people know what bacon means. And for me, what bacon really means, and this is what when I talk to people about bacon, oh, I love bacon, someone will say, I can't give up my bacon. Bacon is fat, salt, smoke. That's it, right? It's fat, salt, and smoke. So if I say coconut bacon, immediately it conjures up a particular thing, fat, salt, and smoke. And so in that case, I don't have a problem with that. So do you see what I mean? So it's kind of walking this line all the time of what's going to be the most effective, what's going to make someone go, oh, those seitan medallions look just like the, I don't even know what they would be, beef medallions that I had growing up, in a gravy that goes over that. Wow, that looks so familiar, that looks really mouth-watering, that looks really appealing to me, I'll eat that. When I'm cooking for someone for the first time, who's not vegan, or when I bring food to a potluck, like a non-vegan potluck, I tend to bring the more familiar, the more simple, basic, really whole foods, so that it's not so unfamiliar. I don't want to have to take the leap and explain what seitan is, maybe the first time, because I want people to just go, oh, that's hummus? I eat hummus, right? Something like that, something that's more familiar. So it's not the same answer every time. It really depends on what the context is, who the person is, what the situation is. But I don't think there's anything wrong, particularly with having the foods look like the animal versions of those. And as far as the prints, that's really interesting, right? It's kind of what I was saying about the idioms. Just because we have idioms that do have animals in them, that's not a bad thing. And so having a print that is that celebrates the fur or the pattern of an animal, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Because we're in that way we could be celebrating that gorgeous, striped tiger or something like that, right? I don't have a problem with that. But a lot of it is context, a lot of it is context. So I guess we just want to make sure that people don't assume that it would be some real tiger. I guess that's the problem I have with the prints, is that I don't want people to think like, oh, that's trendy, let's start killing tigers so that we can get that print, right? So kind of walk the line.
Great. This next one's from Michelle. How do you respond to someone when they say, I just can't give up my meat? How do you respond in a compassionate way?
The first thing I say, Michelle, is I used to feel the same way. The first thing I do is identify with them. First thing I do is not say, oh, you're wrong, yes you can, right? Because immediately they're just going to feel like you're arguing with them. So I'm not looking to have an argument with anybody. I want to find a place of commonality. And the first thing I do is say, I know, I never thought I'd give up X. I never thought I could do it. I felt the same way. And then they go, like, just inside they go, oh, she identifies with me. So you're not some like magical creature that just came into this world like this. Like, you actually had a process and a transition as well. One of my favorite things to say to non-vegans is I grew up eating everything that walked or swam or flew. Like, I grew up that way, right? Now, we might have, in the future, we might have so many generations of vegans who grew up eating vegan that they don't say that. But in this case, it's so important, I think, to find common ground. And then we can say, then I can go from there, and kind of what I just said about the bacon. I never thought, I thought I couldn't either, but once I realized, what was really important to me, which was not contributing to violence against animals, I made the change. And then I might also say, well, what's the struggle for you? What is the struggle? Why do you think you can't give it up? What's it? What do you think is so great that you can't give that up? And they might say the chewiness. And I might say, well, if that's what it is, it could be mushrooms. Seitan has that same wonderful chewiness. They might say, I love the fat. Okay, and then you can tell them about fat, etc. So I think engaging with them and actually asking them, I think asking questions is important, so we don't always feel like we have to have all the answers is a really good way to have dialogue.
Cool. How many more questions do you take, Steve?
Well, we're we're pretty far into this. We've got a lot of questions that came in. Colleen, what do you think with your timing over there?
I'm good for 10 minutes, and it's just that I just have to eat.
Yeah, and some of these are a little bit redundant, Mark, so I think...
Well, this one's just, Joanne's asking, what's your option for catch more flies with honey?
Ooh, I would say agave. I'd say agave nectar, because, and then, because immediately that conveys that same viscous, sticky substance. So, yeah, catch more flies. But we shouldn't be catching flies. That's the problem.
Lots of compliments and thank yous and gratitude, and thank you, Colleen. Colleen, what do you think of this idiom? Oh gosh, I'm not gonna read that one. I didn't know.
No, Eric.
Alicia saying,
is that a good one?
Thank you for this, and to Colleen, who has been a tremendous source of inspiration to me as a vegan. I met Colleen at Farm Sanctuaries Thanks Living years ago, and her work continues to motivate me almost 10 years later.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Thank you for that. How do you, we'll take a couple more. Christy asked, how do you feel about the oil-free vegan lifestyle? I know that's been trendy.
Yeah, it sure has been. Oh boy, I have, I have no problem with anybody eating the way they want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with people implying then if you don't eat that way, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And that's really what I see happening a lot. I see this kind of obsession, almost this competition around who's eating cleaner than who and who has the best diet, and I just don't buy into any of it. I really just want to convey to people that they can eat however they want in this whole umbrella. I just did this episode called Vegan Processed, called Processed Foods Are Evil, or Are They? And I talked specifically about how you can't say there's not one way to eat vegan. Like, under this huge umbrella of not consuming animal products, you've got oil-free, gluten-free, wheat-free, raw, soy-free, blue foods, only cooked foods, no cooked foods. Like, you can eat however you want, but don't tell me that the way I eat, that there's something wrong with that. I find there to be a lot of judgment and like this competition. So I'm not really. But if you want to eat oil-free, go for it. It's just not something that everybody needs to or wants to do.
Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, thank you so much for being part of Vegan Survivor, sharing your wisdom tonight with us, and for everyone in the future who comes through our doors. We're just so thrilled to share this wisdom, Colleen. Thank you so much. Mark, you want to add to that?
I've expressed it. Super grateful to have you here, and it's just really amazing to have this as part of the Vegan Survivor program. And if there's any way we can support you and your works, just you know how to reach us, and we're just grateful that you shared your wisdom and knowledge with us today.
Thank you. Thank you both. And thank you everyone who watched and participated. And you can always email me over at joyfulvegan.com. And, social media is just getting crazier and crazier. It's becoming so spread out. So really, I want to be able to connect with you. And if you join the mailing list, that's ways you're going to be able to connect with me directly and hear about what's going on. And you can email me anytime through the website.
Colleen Patrick-Goudreau right here on Vegan Survivor. The website again, joyfulvegan.com. I'm Steve Prusak with Mark Reinfeld. Thank you for staying up late with us tonight.
Good night from the East Coast.
Good night from the West Coast. And where are you, Colleen?
West Coast, Oakland, California.
Whoop, whoop.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.